Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Crash Bandicoot. This is actually the first in a series of games that were originally released on the PlayStation back in the day. This was the first original Crash Bandicoot game that was actually released in 1996, and to high acclaim because Crash Bandicoot actually became a main selling point for the PlayStation, as for a number of years Crash actually became Sony's official mascot. So the games were originally developed and produced by Naughty Dog Studios that later went on to create award-winning titles mainly from the Uncharted series and also The Last of Us, if you are familiar with those franchises. So originally Naughty Dog got the name for itself primarily starting with the likes of the Crash Bandicoot series, which is quite unique to see how far the developer has actually come over the years. And as I mentioned, for years Sony actually had Crash as its main mascot, and it appealed to so many gamers of that type of generation. It was similar to the likes of Mario with Nintendo and Sonic the Hedgehog with Sega. Sony also needed its own mascot, and that's where Crash Bandicoot came in, and it actually was extremely popular. And this game actually sold in its droves. It went on to sell well over a couple of million copies, and it later went on to go on to the Platinum Edition range on the PlayStation back in the day. That was actually the budget friendly collection of titles. If a title sold over a million copies, it would actually be put on the Platinum Edition list, and there was quite a number of games that hit that threshold, and this being one of the earlier titles to do that. So again, this was released in 1996, and it was the first of a number of games to actually be released. There was three main games from the initial series: Crash Bandicoot 1, Crash Bandicoot 2 and Crash Bandicoot 3, but there were also other titles released in the series, such as Crash Team Racing and Crash Bash. So the Team Racing game was primarily very like a Mario Kart kind of spin-off, and Crash Bash was more like Super Smash Bros and stuff like that, so it had a similar type of concept. But it really all started with the likes of this game here. This game actually in its own right sold a lot of PlayStations as well, because this game appealed to so many different audiences. It appealed to not only kids but also of teenagers, even adults. A lot of people loved this type of game because it had a unique kind of quirky feel to it. It had excellent graphics, cartoony, but they also looked incredible. It really showcased how well put together the PlayStation platform was and how well the games could actually look back in the day. And even around Christmas time in the year when this was actually released, this year actually sold a ton of PlayStation consoles. It really helped to ramp things up and to make PlayStation a really big name brand over the years, and quite rightly so, because the PlayStation was becoming an authority in the games industry and was known to be producing high quality titles Wipeout, Destruction Derby, Tekken series, and then this year came into pretty much high acclaim. So the PlayStation was becoming the place to go to for gaming of all different eras of genre types and for all ages. It pretty much had something there for everybody, and this year was no exception. Now, even with all the positives on this here, this is a fantastic title, but there is also a few caveats with it, because again, like any other platformer, if you've played the Super Mario Brothers or even Sonic the Hedgehog games over the years on the other consoles, this game came with its own unique difficulties and challenges, because this game was not easy. So it was very difficult to play in most cases. You get through the first few levels after a bit of mastery, but then you'd only be left with tougher challenges the further you got through the game, and it just became more and more difficult. I myself struggled. I was never able to fully complete the game outright when I first actually played it on the PlayStation years ago. It wasn't until I actually purchased the game again on the PlayStation Store when I originally bought my first PlayStation 3 back in the day. Sony were actually used to have a catalogue of games that you could get on the PlayStation Store, some old PlayStation 1 games, and this was one of the early titles to be released on the store for the PlayStation 1 as a throwback series. and I eventually got this to play it again. And I've forgotten how good it was, but I also forgotten how difficult it was at the same time, because this game was incredibly difficult. So this was back in the days. You used to be able to save your game on the memory card, but also if you didn't have access to a memory card, you could literally use passwords. So the passwords were another cool way to actually track your progress and even to continue your progress, because back then the PlayStation did need an external memory card to be able to save your game files. But even at that, the same time, not everybody had access to a memory card. I kid you not, the amount of days, like, I remember even we used to rent a PlayStation at the weekends, or when we got a loan of one, or my friends had one and took it over to the house. You never had a memory card, so you tried to try and get as far and get as much out of the game as possible. So trying to get that far without losing all your progress was a nightmare. So yeah, a memory card is definitely a must if you're playing these type of games, for sure, because you will be crucified, because this game is very, very difficult. Because you have different types of play styles. You kind of go into, like, say, it is all 3D, but you kind of go into like a more kind of like third person kind of view, but it also goes to like a 2.5D view, like this here level, when you get through certain points in the game. So the gameplay style changed as you went through different levels, so it was definitely something that was quite unique in how it was able to adapt. But again, it didn't take away that the game presented a very, very adequate challenge. Now, even though it was very, very difficult at times, the game was extremely addictive, all the same. That's the thing, like, it's your typical idea of a really well put together platforming game, because it had a mixture of everything. It had platforming elements that you would have recognised from other similar games of years gone by on other consoles that you would have played growing up, and it had all those elements in it too, so it definitely made it a must have. So this game really did start taking the PlayStation to a whole nother level, because again, as with Crash becoming Sony's new mascot, it appealed to a whole different generation of gamers, and it sold not just in droves of the game, it also sold consoles in its drove just for this game alone. So it definitely was very unique, a very unique title for back in the day. So it is definitely highly regarded, and it's definitely probably the most difficult of all the Crash games on the PlayStation 1, of all the original main number titles anyway. It definitely is a really, really tough game. Now, even myself, after recording this video, I've forgotten how difficult it was, because I was actually just rushing through certain areas, and as you can see, I died an awful lot. It's definitely one of those things with this game. It's not a case where you can actually just speed run. You can do it if you're skilled, but if you haven't played it in a while, it's not worth the hassle, because you really do have to take your time, because you will be crucified. You will actually mess up a lot playing this game. You really will. You'll get caught out and get killed by enemies that you wouldn't think of this, you know. It's quite incredible. Like, it is, but at the same time, it's such an iconic and epic title, and it really, really does hold a lot of really cool memories. Because that was the thing, like, when I always mention, like, with my videos, like, with the likes of what the PlayStation had to offer, there was so much variety. Every game you played, like, for me, when I played the PlayStation, remember when I first got into it, like, every game for me back then, even if the games weren't considered to be that good, for me the games were still gold, because every game offered its own unique challenge. Every game was different, and they all stood out, they all appealed, and this was no different. Every game, just, there was something catchy about it that just drew you in, like, between the graphics, the gameplay style, game narratives and so forth. There was really something just appealing here that would suit everybody and all their needs as well. So it really was an incredible experience. And this is definitely a title, if you really want to go back into the history of the PlayStation 1 and to kind of get a glimpse of what made the console so popular, this was one of those original titles that actually allowed it to do so. So I highly recommend that you actually check it out, for sure. And even going into further elements with the game, how the gameplay styles changed, like you'd say platforming elements, but then you also had like running elements, like here, or the infamous boulder sequence where you had to run, and this is one of the first games to really kind of implement that and execute it really well, and this actually presented a really tough challenge. And the cool thing is as well that this game was also reflected and remembered in the latest version, or the final version of the Uncharted series on the PlayStation 4 that was released a couple of years back. This actual level here actually showcased in the game on a few different points to kind of reflect the history of Naughty Dog, and just as a throwback to how good the PlayStation console was, that they actually recognised that, and they put this level in the game at a few different points and you could actually physically play it. So that was a really cool idea. So it was to actually have that included in it, and it definitely appeals to fans of not just Naughty Dog games or even say the Uncharted series, but to be able to see the history of where the company actually came from and where they ended up, and even just that they acknowledge that their history of why it's so important and why this game here really set its own trends. And it definitely revolutionised the platform and kind of 3D aspects of games back in the day too, because this game offered so many kind of new ideas. And it's funny because a lot of games that I've played in recent years that have come out, even platform type games, a lot of them use similar elements that you actually see that are very, very similar to this type of level as well, where you're running away trying to dodge different kind of elements. I've seen this now in so many games, but at the same time none of them are as iconic as this unique level here, because this one here really, really made it happen and made it popular. So it is really, really cool to see that and to reflect on how much of an influential title this actually is, and still is even to this day. So if you haven't played the Crash Bandicoot series, definitely check it out and just see for yourself the history of the PlayStation, and you'll see why this title actually became so iconic and how it really kind of stapled the PlayStation as the go-to platform in the games industry back in the 90s. So I'd love to know your thoughts on Crash Bandicoot and what you actually thought of the series and what your memories of it. Make sure to share them down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like. Also hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future videos, as I am going to be revisiting old classic games such as this, and also getting to explore other games I never got to play back in the day on the PlayStation, and sharing my experiences and thoughts with everyone. So until next time, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.